Okay, so the Eagles have a new quarterback coach in Doug Nussmeier, which will be good for a number of reasons. Also, after DK McDonald leaving, Philly's landed on a new exciting DB coach. Kellen Moore got a lot of praise from Peyton Manning, plus Cowboys wide receiver CeeDee Lamb admitted the Birds' offense is going to be scary next season. And the most likely linebacker targets with a Vic Fangio connection. So let's get into it. But first, let's run it. Alright, so Sunday marked exactly 6 years since the Eagles won the Super Bowl. And man, what an unbelievable experience that was. Like, there's parts of that game that I still can't believe happened. But talk about a magical ride. Also, pretty cool to see O-line coach Jeff Stoutland text former guard Brandon Brooks saying, "I was so fortunate to have the opportunity to coach you, love you, stout out." That group was just special, and I don't know about you, but every time that I watch the rerun of that, I get goosebumps. It's also probably not surprising, but my favorite play from the game was the iconic Philly special, and thus the reasoning behind this YouTube channel name. Unfortunately, Jalen Hurtt and the NFC attempted to complete the same play in the Pro Bowl, but much like this past season, the execution was lacking just a bit. I know, who cares about the Pro Bowl? Yet I will say that I loved seeing the guys actually having fun out there and showing some smiles because, dude, we didn't get hardly any of that this past season. However, the good news is that should change with better coaching and putting the guys in the best spots to make plays. And speaking of that change, Jeremy Fowler shared that the Birds are hiring Doug Nussmeier as quarterback's coach to work with Jalen, which is not really any shocking news for anyone who's following closely, but should be a great change. Unfortunately for Alex Tanney, that means he's officially gone, and I wish him well, but this was a switch that was badly needed, because Tanney only had 2 years of prior coaching experience, one as a quality control coach and the other as an assistant QB coach before jumping in to manage Jalen. Plus, seeing the lack of experience that Brian Johnson had as an offensive coordinator, oh yeah, and calling plays, it's fair to say that it didn't make things easy on Tanney either. Okay, sure, it's easier to say that after the fact, and you could definitely point to the Houston Texans and Bobby Slowick and Gerard Johnson seeing what they did with CJ Stroud as the counter-argument to that, yet when in doubt, go with experience, which is clearly the message Jeffrey Lurie had for Nick Sirianni about the necessary coaching changes this season. Since the 53-year-old Nussmeier comes in with over 20 years coaching experience, 5 of that most recently in the NFL. And he's also got an interesting roundabout connection with Philly since Nussmeier played for Jim Mora in New Orleans, which is who defensive coordinator Vic Fangio was a longtime assistant under. However, it's the relationship with Kellen Moore which ultimately brought over the QB coach. And while things didn't go as planned in LA, remember Nussmeier was the QB coach under Moore in Dallas when Dak Prescott and the Cowboys ended with the number 1 and number 4 offense in the league in 2021 and 2022. Now sure, Dak couldn't get over the hump, but I think we've seen more than enough to realize that final hurdle isn't as much on the coaches as it is on the player. Plus, Peyton Manning thinks this pairing is a great fit, especially with Moore as the OC, saying Kellen's a good play caller. You know, changes are part of the offseason every single year, but I think Jalen will like playing for him. And I like Nick's system, so I imagine there will be some sort of hybrid of what Nick wants to do along with what Kellen wants to do. And as long as you're focused on working together on that, then I think it's going to be focused around Jalen and what he likes, and I think that's a good hire for the Eagles. Okay, I like that and agree with most of it except for the whole liking Sirianni's system part. Although there was also another kind of surprising supporter of this change from the Pro Bowl in Cowboys wide receiver CeeDee Lamb, who said he was shocked by the move from Moore, but that AJ Brown and Devontae Smith are going to love it because it means more passes and a lot of options to get open. Please tell me I'm not the only one that gets excited about that. I mean, come on, whenever you got a division rival and a guy like CeeDee Lamb who's saying this, my ears are certainly perking up. Oh yeah, and personally, I think Smitty's going to benefit the most in Moore's scheme because like we talked about before, Devontae can be so much more effective if the Birds will get him in motion, or quite honestly, use him a lot like Lamb, move him all over the field and take advantage of his world-class route running, which is exactly what Dallas tight end Jake Ferguson expects to see, saying, "I think there's a lot of plays to be made. I think he puts the guys in the right spot where they need to be and puts it in their hands." Of course, for that to happen, Smitty's still got to put in the work. Although so far, the Slim Reaper said he spent the offseason mostly laying in bed all day and spending time with family.
Why aren't you at work?
Because I didn't feel like it.
Cool, I hope that he takes advantage of it and can enjoy being a dad because we all know whenever the time comes, he's going to be ready. However, question for you, how are we feeling about Nakobe Dean, who's apparently already attacking the offseason, saying he's not hungry, he's starving, while also understanding the criticism that he's gotten for the 2-foot injury suffered during the season, but said, "I know who I am, I ain't got it wrong. I'm confident in my game, I know the type of player I can be, I know the type of person I can be for this city." Okay, I think we all hope he can be good, and it's no secret how much Howie Roseman loves him, saying recently that the organization still has a ton of confidence in Nakobe, yet it feels like momentum is picking up for the Birds to be players at linebacker this offseason, whether that's in the draft or free agency, especially considering Vic Fangio's scheme-dependent positions on defense, which is why SI's Ed Crack said the Eagles' new DC could be trying to lure a couple Miami players to Philly. The most notable of those being linebacker Andrew Van Ginkel, who ranked as Miami's top defensive player. At 6'4", 245 pounds, Van Ginkel registered 69 tackles, 6 sacks, 1 interception, and the same number of hits on the quarterback as Hassan Reddick, despite playing 200 fewer pass rushing snaps. So the potential is certainly there, along with the fact that Fangio's already brought over safeties coach Joe Casper from Miami, who was the quality control guy in Philly in 2021. And in case you weren't aware, he did that last season with Van Ginkel, as the 29-year-old was a free agent with interest from New England and Las Vegas. However, Fangio recruited him and convinced him to take less money to stay in Miami for a $2.6 million deal. Obviously, the idea of staying put in Miami rather than moving to New England or Las Vegas is enticing, but I think it says a lot about the relationship and trust between the DC and VG. I don't know. What would you guys think about a potential signing of Van Ginkel? To me, it makes a lot of sense from a Howie perspective, and then you could draft a long-term solution in April who can learn and grow and, heck, even progress well enough to eventually start. But the idea of getting a vet like Van Ginkel for a lot less than a premier free agent like, say, Patrick Queen or Frankie Louvu seems more likely. Although I get it. If you're more intrigued by the direction of Queen or Louvu, that's fine. And I agree with you that linebacker matters a lot. It's just that I can't see Howie going full bore on a linebacker for $10 to $15 million a year. There's also the potential option of former first-rounder Jordan Brooks from Seattle or Josie Jewell, who has connection with Fangio in Denver, since they'll also be free agents. Either way, we all know it's got to be better regardless of which direction you go, because Zach Cunningham ain't going to cut it. Like Reuben Frank said, Cunningham isn't good enough. He just didn't make plays. Out of 91 NFL linebackers who started at least 10 games this year, Cunningham was one of just 4 with no interceptions, sacks, or forced fumbles. And he was the first Eagles linebacker to start 10 games without a sack, interception, or forced fumble since Keith Adams in 2005. The Eagles can't rely on Dean or Cunningham. They've got to get better across the board at linebacker. If Cunningham is your worst linebacker, that's fine. If he's your best, you're in trouble. Look, I want Nakobe to be good, but I totally agree with Rube that you can't have Cunningham as your best linebacker with this squad. And I'd argue the same for the safety position and Reed Blankenship. Not that I'm quite ready to say he shouldn't be a starter, but with the injuries this season and lack of depth, plus the fact that it feels like $13 million in savings means Kevin Byard won't be coming back, Philly's got to do something here. Perhaps a guy like Javon Bullard from Georgia, or if you want to go with a Cameron Kitchens, I'd be down with that as well. Although before someone says it, I'm not writing off Sidney Brown or think he's just a guy. But given the ACL injury, which he had successful surgery on, by the way, I don't think it's realistic to ask him to come back and automatically be the starter, regardless of how long it takes him to actually get back on the field. Oh, and speaking of an ACL injury, you guys remember back in December when Devin Allen was placed on the practice squad IR? So it turns out that Allen tore his ACL in practice, and with the Eagles not signing him to a futures contract after the end of the season, that means he'll now be a free agent. However, there's a chance the Birds could re-sign him, but I hate it for the dude because now he's in jeopardy of missing the Olympic trials in June. Although Allen did recently tell NBC that he's healing much faster than his previous torn ACLs and thinks there's a decent chance he can still compete, so prayers up for the dude that he's able to get back in time. And then, one guy who can't wait to compete is Eagles cornerback Isaiah Rodgers, who posted to his TikTok of the recent workouts he's been getting in. And while I'm curious to see how much rust he has to start out, it wouldn't surprise me if he's a very strong contributor in Fangio's scheme. But curious how much you guys think Rodgers is going to make an impact on this defense. All right, how about a little Jason Kelce chat? Since Sexy Batman pretty much steals the show wherever he goes, as was the case at the Pro Bowl. Oh yeah, and his ability to sway the voting of best team name between the Chiefs and Bills, which now means the legend's going to have to go through a flaming table after making that bet. However, with all the fun and games, John Ritchie thinks it could be swaying him towards returning next season.
Jason Kelce's out there leading the offensive lineman. You can see he does not want to be done.
Please don't retire. For the love of football, please don't.
Smile around there?
I don't think he wants to be done. I think Jason Kelce's coming back in part because we need him. We need him desperately to make these calls and things like that. But he's out there. You can see he can still do it, and that he still wants to do it. And I was once on a team that had a great interior lineman named Steve Wisniewski.
Yep.
We really needed, and our owner went and talked to him during the offseason and said, "Listen, Wiz, I know you're thinking of hanging it up. We need one more from you."
Wow.
I would anticipate just watching Kelce out there, watching him love it. I would anticipate this team can ask that from him.
I don't know. I want John to be right, but it feels like if Kelce is going to come back, it's going to be more on the coaching side than it is the playing. Let me be clear, that's not what I'm hoping for, and just for the record, I don't think that Jason owes this team anything. But keeping it with the Birds, it's now official who the secondary coach will be. After DK McDonald was relieved of his services, Vic Fangio got his man in Christian Parker from Denver. And it's interesting because as Chris Thomason points out, the Broncos could have blocked the move, but didn't. And now Parker will be reunited with Fangio, who was his coach in Denver in 2021. Although the speculation for not blocking it is because he'll be getting an increased role, meaning perhaps the passing game coordinator and the secondary coach. And I love this move for a couple reasons, but yes, to remain consistent, he doesn't have a ton of NFL experience. However, he's been the defensive backs coach in Denver since 2021, coaching Patrick Surtain and Justin Simmons to Pro Bowl seasons. While reports from players are that Parker's known for his ability to connect with players and has a great ability to coach communication.
Sometimes as coaches, we can there's a certain way we can talk upstairs and a certain way that you talk to the players. So you don't want to give them too much information. We have to streamline it for them. And then when guys have been coached for a while, then they can kind of put it in even more like layman's terms to their teammates because it's a different perspective because they're actually out there on the field. So we have that perspective as we talk to them. But then sometimes like the way K-Jack can talk about something to a guy might be the same message as me, but it might be another way of doing it. So however it hits their brain, whether it's, in the meeting with me, a walkthrough with me, they come off the field, I tell, hey, Justin, grab him and, go over X, Y, Z. He knows what I'm talking about, and we can kind of put that direct message to him.
Also worth mentioning that when Fangio and Parker were together in 21, the Broncos had the 8th best pass defense in the league. Now let me be the first to dispel the notion that we're getting Patrick Surtain or he's linked to Philly because of the connection now here with Parker. However, Parker is very much a guru when it comes to cornerbacks, and the fact that you have Joe Casper coaching up the safeties really is a good tandem there. But how are you guys feeling about it? And how are you feeling about the schedule release? Yeah, in case you didn't hear it, the NFL announced that Philly will host one of its home games and play a Week 1 Friday night opener in Brazil. Who knows who the opponent will be, but it is crazy that a team who hasn't hosted a Week 1 opener since 2019, well, I guess we're technically being given one, but it's in Brazil. Sorry, you can tell I'm not necessarily a fan of this. However, I guess I'll probably won't care too much whenever football returns for us. One return that did happen, to the NFL that is Cliff Kingsbury after backing out of the Raiders OC spot to accept the offensive coordinator position under Dan Quinn in Washington, who also started his first day. But honestly, I'm not too concerned, but if you're looking for more insight on this move, go check out this really cool channel I found called Your Daily Football by some dude named Thomas Mott.
Oh my God! I know him!
Seriously, Thomas is also covering the entire NFL in a separate channel, but I highly encourage you to like and sub for more content, and I've got a link in the description for anyone interested. Alright, a lot more draft coverage coming, as well as potential free agents and some live shows coming soon, so stay tuned. This has been The Philly Special.